Welcome to Entrepreneurship Made in Brazil, where we bring you Brazilian companies, global stories. In 2024, the Pantanal, the largest tropical wetland on the planet, burned. Wildfires engulfed 2.6 million hectares, equivalent to nearly 4 million football fields. Entire ecosystems were decimated in weeks. The Pantanal, covering 210,000 square kilometers and recognized as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, is home to over 4,700 species, including jaguars, capybaras, hyacinth macaws, and giant otters. This biodiversity hotspot is also one of the world's most vulnerable ecosystems. The 2024 wildfires weren't an isolated event. Over the last 2 decades, the Pantanal has faced escalating threats from climate change, deforestation, and human-made fires. In 1988, 6.9 million hectares of the Pantanal were seasonally flooded. By 2023, that number dropped to 3.4 million hectares, a 50% decline due to changing rainfall patterns and prolonged droughts. When the fires hit, they spread fast. Driven by high winds, low humidity, and record temperatures, flames overtook reserves, farms, and protected lands. The São Francisco do Perigara Reserve lost nearly 90% of its area. In Santa Sofia, 65% of the land burned. In Caimã Pantanal, Caimã Farm, 85.5% was consumed, destroying jaguar habitats and vital wetlands. But amid this devastation, one organization stepped in to fight back: Onçafari. Founded in 2011 by former race car driver Mário Haberfeld, Onçafari began as a conservation initiative focused on protecting jaguars in the Pantanal through ecotourism. The strategy was simple. By habituating jaguars to safari vehicles, Onçafari could create a sustainable tourism model that financially supports conservation efforts and benefits local communities. Over the past 13 years, Onçafari has grown into a leading force in Brazilian biodiversity conservation, expanding to 16 operational bases across 4 key biomes: the Pantanal, Amazon, Cerrado, and Atlantic Forest, covering over 1.3 million hectares of protected land. Ecotourism remains a core revenue stream, attracting tourists worldwide eager to see jaguars and maned wolves in their natural habitats. This model not only funds research and conservation, but also generates income for local communities. In 2023 alone, Onçafari supported ecotourism, brought an estimated $1.5 million into regional economies, supporting jobs in hospitality, guiding, and transport. But Onçafari is more than safaris. It operates across 8 core pillars: ecotourism, driving sustainable tourism in wildlife-rich regions; science and research, tracking over 80 jaguars, conducting genetic studies, and monitoring species population health; reintroduction, successfully rewilding captive-born jaguars and other native species; education, running programs in local schools, educating over 5,000 students on conservation; fire prevention, establishing fire breaks and training firefighting brigades; advocacy, lobbying for stronger environmental protections; social projects, partnering with local communities to promote sustainable agriculture and education; forests and restoration, reforesting degraded lands to reconnect ecosystems. This multifaceted approach has made Onçafari one of Brazil's most impactful conservation NGOs, but the 2024 wildfires pushed the organization to its limits, marking the most significant environmental crisis it had ever faced.
Realmente esse ano no Pantanal os incêndios foram gigantes, muito além do normal. Eu já presenciei alguns incêndios no Pantanal desde a fundação do Onçafari 13 anos atrás, mas esse ano foi muito mais forte do que nos anos anteriores, né? Acho que a grande causa é a seca, né? Esse ano a gente não teve as enchentes no Pantanal como de costume, então o Pantanal, em vez de estar seco desde abril, maio desse ano, ele está seco desde o ano passado.
The São Francisco do Perigara Reserve, home to the largest known population of hyacinth macaws, lost 89% of its land, over 22,000 hectares. Nearly 80 kilometers of fire breaks were built in a desperate attempt to control the flames, but the fire overwhelmed the lines. At Santa Sofia Reserve, a truck accident ignited another fire on July 24th. Fueled by 40 degrees Celsius heat and winds exceeding 60 kilometers per hour, the fire reached the reserve in less than 24 hours. Over 21,800 hectares were destroyed, along with key wildlife habitats. The Cayman Pantanal faced the most heartbreaking loss. On August 5th, the Onçafari team discovered the charred body of Gaia, an 11-year-old jaguar and the first of her species to be tracked from birth by the organization. Her death became a symbol of the crisis, but there were survivors. Young jaguars Itapira and Miranda found hiding in concrete culverts, and tapirs like Melancia and Valente, rescued with severe burns. In total, it took 54 days to extinguish the fires fully. Nearly 95 firefighters, Onçafari staff, military brigades, and volunteers fought to contain the fires, using aircraft, bulldozers, and manual fire breaks. The cost? Over $500,000 in emergency response alone. Faced with such devastation, Onçafari knew a long-term recovery effort was essential. Thus began Recupera Pantanal. On August 6, 2024, Onçafari launched the Pantanal Recovery Fund. The campaign aimed to raise emergency funds for wildfire containment, animal rescue, ecosystem restoration, and future fire prevention. Within 4 months, the campaign raised $535,000 from 4,004 donors spanning Brazil, the United States, Singapore, and the UK. Donations came from individuals, corporations, and conservation foundations, with significant support from international media coverage and social media campaigns. Wildfire rescues. Melancia, a 6-month-old tapir, was found dehydrated with third-degree burns. Treated with tilapia skin therapy, antibiotics, and laser therapy, she made a full recovery after 3 months and now lives in a rewilding enclosure. Itapira and Miranda, 2 young jaguars, were rescued with severe paw burns. After months of veterinary care, both were fitted with GPS collars and successfully reintroduced into the wild. Valente, a year-old tapir, suffered the most severe burns and is still under veterinary care, but shows significant improvement. Over 40 animals were rescued and treated, with many now roaming freely again.
A fauna realmente foi uma perda grande. A gente, como Onçafari, monitora algumas das onças. Uma das onças que a gente monitora, inclusive, morreu queimada nesses incêndios, e outras foram resgatadas aí, como mostraram na reportagem. E a boa notícia, acho que sempre temos que tentar olhar as coisas com otimismo, é que a Miranda retornou aí na sexta-feira. A gente tem uma outra chamada Itapira, que foi para Brasília, num centro de tratamento no NEX, fez vários tratamentos com ozônio, pele de tilápia para recompor as patas que estavam queimadas, e devem voltar provavelmente semana que vem lá para Cayman Pantanal, onde a gente trabalha no Pantanal, e ser solta de volta na natureza.
The following are some of Onçafari's actions towards ecosystem restoration. Planted 4,000 native seedlings to restore burned forests and rebuild natural habitats. Constructed 80 kilometers of fire breaks to prevent future wildfires. Built ponds and wells to ensure animals have access to water during droughts. Rebuilt destroyed reintroduction enclosures, essential for transitioning animals back into the wild.
Eu acho que o impacto realmente foi grande esse ano. A gente não consegue quantificar ainda, mas com certeza vários animais morreram queimados. A gente encontrou todas as espécies que você pode imaginar. E tanto o Onçafari quanto a Cayman, lá onde a gente trabalha, a gente fez várias ações para ajudar a fauna, né? Então, a gente suplementou de comida para os herbívoros, né? Depois das queimadas não tinham nada para comer. A gente construiu vários poços, vários açudes, para ter água para essas espécies, né? A gente ainda nem chegou no pico da seca e já estava faltando água. E acho que o mais importante é a preparação, né, para evitar incêndios como esses no futuro.
Here are some actions towards community and awareness. Mobilized more than 95 firefighting personnel and conservationists. Launched educational programs training over 300 local residents in fire prevention and wildfire monitoring. Secured major media coverage in Forbes, O Globo, and Condé Nast Traveler, where Onçafari was recognized as one of the Bright Ideas in Travel 2024. Those actions aren't just about rebuilding. They were about future-proofing the Pantanal against the increasing threats of climate change. While Recupera Pantanal was a success, the work is far from over. The Pantanal faces mounting threats. Climate change. Increasing temperatures and irregular rainfall patterns contribute to dry wetlands, creating ideal fire conditions. Deforestation. Agricultural expansion continues to encroach on protected lands, fragmenting habitats. Policy shifts. Environmental deregulation threatens funding and legal protections for conservation areas. Of the more than $500,000 raised, around $27,000 remain allocated for future fire prevention, reforestation efforts, and continued medical care for rescued wildlife. Onçafari plans to expand its fire prevention infrastructure by creating buffer zones around critical reserves, installing more water sources, and advocating for stronger legal protections. The path forward is uncertain, but one thing is clear. Without immediate sustained efforts, the Pantanal will continue to face catastrophic wildfires, risking the collapse of one of the Earth's most vital ecosystems. The Pantanal still stands. It's scarred, but it's alive. And its future depends on what we do next. Donate, volunteer, protect, because every life saved is a victory for all of us.
If you want to learn more about sustainable business models and Brazilian companies who strive to innovate their industry, check out our video about Oakberry.